they said a few days ago that the war against Boko Haram had been won. This is another lie. The war hasn't been won. People are being killed every day. They said the war had been won on the 23rd. On the 25th, people were killed in Maiduguri. On the 27th, people were killed in Borno State. On the 28th, people were killed in Adamawa. And as I speak to you today, of the 22 local government areas that were recovered by the Jonathan administration, a number of them are back in the hands of Boko Haram today. So it's simply not true that the war against Boko Haram has been won. Now, instead of being consistent and clear in his assertions, what the president also did was to now come out and say that arms were indeed bought, but they were bought with cash. And he spoke as if he didn't understand or appreciate why arms had to be bought with cash. Let me take this opportunity to remind him and Nigerians, at the time that Jonathan was in power, there was an arms embargo on this country. We could not prosecute the war against Boko Haram because nobody was prepared to sell us arms. The Americans took that position, their Western allies took that position, and virtually everybody else in the world. Therefore, we had to procure arms on the black market, and the only way you can do that is by using cash. And I think the position of our government at the time was that no matter what it takes, whether it's cash, check, or bank transfer, the important thing was to get the arms for our boys to fight on the front. They did this, they prosecuted the war effectively, and by the time the election took place, Boko Haram was virtually non-existent anywhere in the country apart from in Sambisa Forest. These are the facts, and this is what happened at the time. So for them to come around and say no arms were bought, or for them to say that arms were bought with cash, as if there was anything wrong with that, given the circumstances, I think does a great disservice to this government, to the president, and to our nation, and to those that fought the war against Boko Haram and died gallantly fighting on the front. Arms were bought. That's the first point. And arms were bought, and it wasn't easy to procure them, but the government sat up and procured them. Before they bought those arms, when we couldn't get arms, Boko Haram took 22 local government areas in the northeastern part of our country, took virtually 3/4 of Borno State, took parts of Yobe, took parts of Adamawa, and they were encroaching on Abuja and onto the north-central region, north-central zone, simply because we couldn't procure arms. Our American friends, our British friends, were not prepared to help us. But given the ingenuity of the past administration, they now dug deeper and procured the arms and bought them. They didn't just buy the arms, they ensured that our armed forces were in a position to fight the battle and to fight the war in a very, very clinical and systematic manner. And consequently, each local government area that had been taken before was retaken. This was a victory for our troops. By the time the elections took place, we had a major victory against Boko Haram. But of course, since the election was fought and won, everything appears to have been reversed. And that's a concern. Now, I don't think it's helpful to continuously blame the government for the challenges we're facing on the war front. I think it's important for all of us to come together and support the government in the fight against terror, because we're all Nigerians, regardless of what political party you're in. But I think the important thing is for our government to lead from the front, speak the truth, tell the people what the challenges are, and stop saying at every point in time that the reason why they are losing the war against terror or losing territory or that people are still being killed every day is because Jonathan didn't do this, Jonathan didn't do that, and that the previous government did nothing at all. Nothing could be further from the truth.